On December 10, 2025, in front of stunned reporters, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell made an unprecedented admission. He said that housing was going to be a problem and that the Fed did not really have the tools to address a structural housing shortage. He also confessed that even a rate cut was not going to make much of a difference for struggling Americans. Inside the Fed, a rare split vote signaled a historic internal crisis. If the central bank cannot fix America's core economic pain, what happens next? The answer begins here. Jerome Powell's words cut through the usual caution of central bank press conferences. When asked about the housing crisis, he did not reach for the familiar promise that lower rates would boost affordability. Instead, Powell said that the Fed does not really have the tools to address a structural housing shortage. For a Federal Reserve chair, this was a rare break from decades of carefully hedged optimism. Since the Volcker era, Fed leaders have insisted their rate moves could steer the economy through almost any storm. But on December 10, 2025, Powell drew a clear line between what monetary policy can and cannot do. The 25 basis point rate cut announced just minutes earlier was meant to show the Fed was acting. Yet Powell dismissed the idea that such a move would help families priced out of the market. He said he did not know that a 25 basis point decline in the federal funds rate would make much of a difference for people. Reporters in the room registered the affordability and the gravity of the moment. For years, the housing market's troubles, rising prices, chronic underbuilding, and mortgage lock in effect had been blamed on everything from zoning laws to investor speculation. Now the nation's top monetary official was admitting that no amount of fine-tuning of interest rates could unlock supply or make homes affordable again. Powell's admission exposed a deeper truth. The Fed's traditional toolkit, raising or lowering rates by quarter-point increments, was never designed to solve problems rooted in decades of policy choices outside its control. The distinction between cyclical downturns and structural shortages became impossible to ignore. As the press conference continued, the sense of institutional constraint was palpable. Powell's candor landed like a warning. Some crises are beyond the reach of central banking. 9 votes in favor, 3 against. For the first time in 6 years, the Federal Open Market Committee could not present a united front. The official tally, 9-3, stood in sharp contrast to the near unanimity that has defined Powell's tenure. Each dissent carried its own warning. 2 officials argued that any further easing would risk reigniting inflation, while another pushed for a larger cut, fearing the labor market was weakening faster than the data suggested. The summary of economic projections added another layer of discord. 7 out of 19 officials now see no additional rate cuts in 2026. The dot plot, once a tool for clarity, now mapped a landscape of uncertainty. Beyond the formal votes, the atmosphere inside the Fed had shifted. 6 more members, though voting with the majority, quietly registered their discomfort, an undercurrent of disagreement that rarely surfaces in public. The committee, long known for its consensus-driven culture, now resembled a body pulled in opposite directions. Some members remained fixated on inflation that refuses to settle, while others were anxious about rising joblessness. The split was more than procedural. It was a public display of doubt at the heart of America's most powerful economic institution. For markets, the message was unmistakable. The Fed's path forward was no longer clear, and the usual signals, rate cuts, and forward guidance had lost their power to reassure. The institution itself had become the story. Consumer prices rose 2.8% over the past year, still above the Federal Reserve's 2% target. At the same time, the unemployment rate climbed to 4.4%, up a full percentage point from its low in April 2023. These 2 numbers, stubborn inflation and rising unemployment, now move in opposite directions, setting off alarm bells at the heart of the Fed's dual mandate. During the December 10 press conference, Jerome Powell described the situation as very unusual. He warned there was no risk-free path left for policymakers, with every option carrying visible costs. For the first time in years, the usual playbook of cutting rates to boost jobs or holding them steady to contain prices no longer offered a clear answer. Underneath the surface, the reliability of the data itself came into question. Powell acknowledged that the Bureau of Labor Statistics headline payroll figures, which averaged 40,000 new jobs per month since April 2023, might actually be overstating the strength of the labor market. He told reporters that 40,000 jobs could be -20, suggesting real job creation may have already slipped below zero. This gap between the payroll survey and the weaker household survey left even seasoned labor economists unsettled. One economist warned that when the signals diverge, it is a warning that the official numbers may be giving a false sense of security. Charts of inflation and unemployment now tell a story of conflicting pressures. The Fed's own projections show inflation refusing to normalize, while the labor market quietly deteriorates. With policy stuck between these two threats and the very data in doubt, Powell's admission summed up the moment. There is no risk-free path. The central bank faces a dead end, forced to navigate with uncertain instruments and incomplete maps. Jerome Powell did not hesitate when pressed on the source of stubborn inflation. He pointed directly at tariffs, explaining that the recent surge in goods prices was not a mystery of monetary policy, but a direct result of trade decisions made outside the Fed's walls. In April 2025, the administration imposed a sweeping 10% minimum tariff on nearly all imports, followed within days by steep increases targeting China, steel, aluminum, and autos. By May, after hurried negotiations, the combined rate on Chinese goods settled near 30%. These measures pushed the average U.S. tariff rate from 2.5% to the highest level in over a century. Goods inflation responded almost immediately. Import prices for electronics, toys, and furniture rose sharply, with the Bureau of Labor Statistics goods CPI subindex showing a clear spike in the months after the new tariffs took effect. Retailers faced with higher costs rolled out price increases as inventories turned over, especially in categories most exposed to import surcharges. For American families, the impact was visible on store shelves. Holiday shopping brought sticker shock, and everyday essentials became more expensive. Powell described these effects as a one-time shift in the price level, warning that the real danger was not just the initial surge, but the risk that these price hikes could feed into broader inflation expectations. Trade economists echoed his analysis, noting that while some foreign suppliers absorbed a fraction of the tariffs, most of the cost landed squarely on U.S. consumers. The Fed's rate cuts, incremental as they were, could not offset the direct impact of trade policy on goods prices. Monetary tools designed for demand shocks have little power when inflation is imported by decree. America's housing market sits in a supply trap decades in the making. Census data show that the nation has underbuilt by millions of homes since the financial crisis, leaving a gap too wide for quick fixes. Builders face rising costs and local restrictions, while many homeowners are frozen in place. During the pandemic, buyers locked in 30-year mortgages at rates near 3%. Now, with rates hovering around 7%, few are willing to give up that advantage. This lock-in effect keeps existing homes off the market, choking inventory even as demand stays high. Freddie Mac's latest reports confirm that new listings remain far below pre-pandemic levels. Rate cuts, even at a quarter point, do little to change the math for these homeowners or encourage builders to ramp up. The shortage is structural, not cyclical, a reality monetary policy cannot unwind. Credit card delinquencies have climbed to levels not seen since before the pandemic, with the New York Fed reporting a steady uptick through late 2025. The pain is concentrated among lower-income households, where 5 years of inflation have chipped away at real wages and forced more families to rely on debt to cover basic expenses. Even as the wealthiest Americans continue to spend freely, the bottom half faces shrinking savings and rising late payments. The Fed's latest projections show GDP growth revised up to 2.3% for 2026, yet only a single rate cut is penciled in for the year ahead. This contradiction, growth forecasts rising while job losses mount, reflects the confusion inside the central bank. Powell's term ends in May, and the countdown to a new chair has already begun. With so much unresolved, the risks of policy error and deeper economic strain grow by the week. Today, America's central bank admits its limits. As housing shortages deepen and inflation resists old solutions, the gap between policy tools and real-world pain grows wider. The Fed's uncertainty now shapes every paycheck, rent payment, and hope. Economic reality no longer waits for the next rate cut. What do you think?